So, hello and welcome to my show here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The opinions and information expressed on the show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experience. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. So you know that pain, the stress, the struggle that divorcing men and women go through? Well, there is a way to find peace, keep your sanity, all while assisting your lawyer in the legal process, saving you thousands of dollars. My name's Tina Huggins. I'm your high conflict divorce specialist. And today I want to talk briefly about what we're getting ready to do in 2026. So before I introduce our speaker, I want to invite you to join me next year in 2026, where I'll be taking a deep dive into the topic of abuse. We'll explore not only the types of abuse and the frequency and the aspect of divorce, but we're also going to be talking about the difficult subjects such as sex trafficking and, most critically, the silent abuse that occurs within our own families, within our own lives, within my life. The silent abuse, this is the kind of abuse that many of us mistakenly normalize in our lives, which often end up in murder, suicide events. And I encourage you to join me and my guests in 2026 as we uncover the true nature of abuse and what it looks like from the outside in and from the inside out. So I'm super excited today because my guest is Erin Davis. Erin helps women untangle from worrisome thoughts by weaving together their story into a narrative into a narrative that lets them live in the present and opens the door to deep love. Erin's also the host of a podcast called Bossing Up, Uncovering OCD, which can be found on your favorite podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, and all of the other places that you may watch your podcast. With over a decade of experience, Erin has helped many women regain control over their lives. Erin blends her expertise with personalized support through therapy and relationship coaching. So welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Tina. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm excited. We got to talk just briefly. We had a little bit of glitch we had to work on here, but so I told you then I'm just super excited about this conversation. I had it in my notes about what you did and our conversation that we had the first time. So I'm
Yes.
happy, and we had to readjust our timing. So I'm super happy that you were able to accommodate me.
Right, absolutely. Well, again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk about a topic that's not very well known, and that's relationship OCD. Now, a lot of people think about OCD as just being neat, clean, orderly, or organized, but it's totally much more than that. And this really crosses over into like your realm of work, with divorce, because a lot of these women who struggle with OCD, they also come across these feelings of like, how do I know if I'm with the one? How do I know we're meant to be together forever? What if he leaves? Like all of these things that could potentially lead to divorce, they they're contemplating these things, and it creates a whole lot of distress, whether engaged, married, or even single women deal with relationship OCD.
Yeah, I I know exactly what you're talking about. I have a cousin. We finally got her married off. She's just about my age, and so she had never been married before. And the reason is because she had this OCD issue. And the only reason that she got married to this guy is because I would tell her, whenever you're getting to think that way, call me. I'll talk you off the ledge because he's perfect for you. So I spent
Wow.
many hours talking her off the ledge of her OCD. So I completely understand where you're going with that.
Yes, yes. And it's a lot of relationship overthinking. And,
Mhm.
you know, some of it too, whether it's nature versus nurture, I think culturally, our society does a lot to create like this fairy tale relationship as if it's supposed. And I think your series coming up about abuse is really going to make it clear of like really what's a workable relationship, what's reasonable, and then what is crossing the line of abuse. Because a lot of these women, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, they go through hard times. And so it ultimately, it's hard for them to trust their own instincts and to trust their own senses with the relationship because time and time again, these ladies that I work with, like one little thing will go wrong in their relationship as if, like, you know, their partner didn't say the right thing at the right time. And that spins them into a spiral of, are they the one? Did I make a mistake? You know?
Yeah. And because I work in the realm of high conflict and abuse aspect, and not just women go through this, but men also go through it too. We don't see this so much in the OCD part with men because men think differently than women, but it's if if they could realize that they're causing this type of issue and then it just gets to spiraling, it's like my cousin, she had so many relationships that just spiraled on her just because she would imagine something is there and then through the imagination create it, right? And
Yes.
by by preventing that and realizing that this really truly is the one, then we calm down through the work that you're getting ready to talk us about. We can calm that down, calm that OCD down, and then nurture back into that nurturing aspect, nurture the relationship and
Yes.
grow it. So that would prevent me from coming into to many people's pictures.
Sure. Well, and I don't know if this has happened to you or not, but a lot of women may even research divorce and then not go through with it. So
Most
this is
definitely.
like a great way to kind of vet out in a way. Is this real? Is this legitimate? Is this reasonable evidence for me to, divorce, leave the marriage, or is this something else? Is this OCD? And um, as you were saying with men, yeah, they can totally experience OCD. With the women, though, they are 1.6 times more likely than men to have OCD. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, estrogen doesn't help the matter. When your estrogen is high, your OCD symptoms can be worse.
Oh, most definitely. And I can speak because I've come through all of that in my life. And as you were talking just here at the beginning, I was thinking how different I am and how different I see relationships. I am, as many of our viewers know, and you and I talked briefly the first time, I lost my perfect for me husband back in June of 2024. And
Yes.
and the gift that I got from that perfect for me relationship was, oh my gosh, it's even helped me even better today to be tolerant of things that we normally wouldn't be tolerant because that OCD gets in the way. But being tolerant, I'm able to sidestep it and look at it in a whole different light. And it makes me have compassion for the individual that I may be talking about or dealing with in this situation. It's made my work so much better. I'm so blessed that I've come through all of that learning that you are now able to help
Wow.
people
Right. I mean, I'm sure that's been such a journey. And
with.
it's great that you're using that experience to like finding some purpose and intention with it to help others. I love that.
Mhm.
So for the viewers who are wondering, like, what is relationship OCD? As I was mentioning before, it's not all about being clean and organized. So some common signs of relationship OCD is worrying about your partner cheating, even though there's no evidence for that happening. And Tina, I think you and I were talking about that before. Like, there's been a couple of clients of yours that are, or maybe it was a family member, they're hyper worried about their partner cheating. So, and I've worked with many women like this too. They are researching the bank accounts, they're researching the phone history, like all the logs, but there's no evidence for an adulterous relationship. But here's the key thing. OCD consists of intrusive thoughts, images, urges, and feelings. Notice none of those are facts.
Right.
Okay. And so whenever these ladies they experience the feeling of what if he's cheating, then they start doing all of those compulsions, which is the checking and researching, etc. Um, so again, it could be like worrying about your partner cheating. It could be obsessing over when your partner will text back, and I'm guilty of that. Like, they must not love me anymore. But I've worked through my own stuff myself. Um, and maybe if you are single, you're worrying about if you're going to find the one or if the person you're with is the one. Another one that comes up that I had a really great episode on with another guest was about jealousy, like just having extreme jealousy and possessiveness over your partner. Like, how many times have women been called controlling when it could actually be underlying relationship OCD, you know? Um, then the other signs could be like craving love or companionship, but having these impossible standards. And those impossible standards show up because maybe you have your checklist of things, let's say, that you're looking for in a partner, but as soon as that partner is presented to you, you want to avoid them because you're feeling anxious or maybe feeling like this isn't the one, and avoidance is another compulsion. Also, what's really popular among relationship OCD women is checking their partner's relationship or checking their partner's location all the time. I cannot imagine having Life 360 on a partner. Could you?
The only reason that I even talk about that specific app and apps similar to that is when my clients are doing the exit and they need to be safe and know where their abuser is at. And that's the only time I think that that's necessary.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, to be checking their partner's whereabouts. I mean, even these ladies who are married, and it could be like you're worried about your husband passing away, and even though there's no evidence for illness or injury, nothing, but you need to check that they are still alive. So,
Mhm. So I want to touch, you just bringing that up. I want to touch on the difference between, and you've actually said it, thinking that their partner's cheating and trusting their intuition, because there
mhm,
is a part that those seem like they're the same, but they're not.
yes, agreed.
Trusting intuition and thinking separate themselves by a knowingness. And and a knowingness gives you a settled feeling as opposed to that of an OCD thought. When you know it internally, you will handle things differently. When you have OCD thinking, you start interjecting things and definitely going to cause the partner to cheat because who would want to be with somebody like that?
Right, right. Well, and you bring up a good point because a lot of these women, they're like in this position of, I don't know which voice to trust. And so we talk about getting to know the real self, also becoming familiar with their feared self, and ultimately, like in thinking about if their partner is cheating, kind of that knowingness. I mean, you're right. Like, there would be some actual evidence to go off of, right? So, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of evidence. So, evidence that They are staying out too late when they should be home. They're working too late when they, should be somewhere else. Like, right? Like a consistent
Mhm.
pattern. Or you can, and I think this is where people definitely get confused. Like, is this red flags or is it relationship OCD? And I think that's where they kind of need an expert to help guide them through this stuff. But Tina, what would you say are those legitimate signs of evidence that the person is cheating?
Well, you kind of went over those types of things, you know. They keep saying they're staying late at work and they don't. Now, that can also be that they're workaholics and they're trying to prevent time coming home to you because you're OCD, right? So these are types of things that you see. And the one, because I deal with abuse, narcissistic abuse is one of those, and that's projection. And that's when your partner's blaming you for cheating when you know you have no signs of them of yourself cheating, and how did they come up with this? And those are the projection is probably the one thing that you can go, huh, if they're thinking I'm cheating, now's a time for me to try to figure this out. Because that is the one thing that pops up that will almost guarantee every time. So when we're dealing with narcissistic abuse, that is the one thing that we'll see. But also, you know, this is one that, and a few years back, so go 100 years back, well, not quite that long, but was a little girl and I was like maybe 13, 14, and I was taking martial arts and I was riding with the instructors at the time because they lived not too far from me. So we'd ride from our little town 32 miles to go to this class. One of those instructors got married to a girl not too much older than me, actually. And
Oh.
she, I remember the story because the instructor and my dad were friends. So I would go to bed and I would hear them talk about she thought there was lipstick on his collar and he wasn't cheating on her. She had the relationship OCD aspect. Well, all these years later, she gets a hold of me in the background and she's like, did you cheat with him? Did you, was that lipstick on his collar yours? I was like 14 years old, for goodness sake. One, who wears lipstick to go to a martial arts training? And then two, how often does lipstick get on the collar? That's been my
Right.
biggest thing. So, yeah,
Right.
there's the relationship OCD aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great example. Because you can see that this person, all those years, probably obsessed over that, right? And couldn't let it go. And
Mm-mm.
that destroys your relationship, you know? And I've even seen women who go as far as buying a book on forgiveness for cheating when there's no evidence that their husband has cheated.
Right,
And
right,
yeah, so you're so right with the projection because even thinking about that example, it was they formed in their mind, oh, he must be cheating on me with that lady. And so
right,
then they're stalking the lady on their social media to look for evidence and any type of like alignment or matching that they're in the same location. I mean, it's like a whole thing. And none of that energy serves you, it just feeds the OCD. And so, what I work on the ladies with is the exposure response prevention part, which sometimes gets a bad rap because if you've seen any of the OCD therapists on like Instagram or TikTok, they'll do very extreme exposures, and your brain doesn't really require that to learn a new way of thinking. Um, I tell all of my clients I will never ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself or that I wouldn't ask a family member to do. So, in that example, I'm going to encourage you to maybe remove that person from your Facebook friends or to not investigate their profile, like maybe snooze them or something, because you can't feed into it when there's not any evidence.
right.
Hmm.
Well, and they're trying to create evidence, and then we work in in the realm of the law of attraction aspect. What you think about, you're going to bring about. And that's just it. That's why my cousin, when I talk about her, is that when she would think about all of these negative things, she would bring about it. And she started literally studying the law of attraction herself when we started bringing all of that stuff up. And she's like, wow,
Wow.
I can just make any negative thing happen. All I have to do is think about it and the rock falls on me. And that is
Yes.
exactly what we do when we incest, we're just like, we can't let go of it. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
create something really horrible for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if,
Mhm.
let's say, the person has these intrusive thoughts that they are somehow a bad person, because sometimes it happens like where they are fearful that they themselves will be the cheater and will cheat on their partner, and that creates a lot of distress. And I've even worked with people who have checked themselves into the hospital for fear of like losing control. And the thing is, like, these thoughts do not equal actions and they do not equal who you really are. Because OCD loves to attack your values. And if you are experiencing that much distress over the thoughts, that's a telltale sign that this is OCD. So,
Yeah.
anyway, in thinking about, let's say if you do have that fear of what if I cheat, typically they are avoiding looking at people they think they may be attracted to. And I've even come across people who are worried about what if I'm not the sexual orientation I thought I was. Like, what if I'm gay or what if I'm actually straight or, whatever it looks like. Um, because what it's doing, it's undermining the relationships that are important to you. So
Most
that,
definitely.
yeah, it's a key indicator that, like, okay, probably the person you're with is your number one because you're experiencing so much distress over these thoughts.
And, I look back over my life and it's been very rare that I've ever had real jealousy because jealousy itself means that you're not good enough for your partner. And so it doesn't have anything to do with your partner. It has to do with you. And so working on yourself. And so I had one partner, and it was just the most interesting thing ever, as really nobody was interested in this guy that I was dating. Nobody. He
Oh
just was
no.
not, he didn't fit into the circle of people I hung out with. And
Mm-hmm.
so but I was probably the most jealous at that time. And the reason is because I needed to work on myself. I didn't feel well. I had just left my marriage and I wasn't feeling well enough about myself. And that because of my relationship with my ex-husband and then my perfect for me mate dying, I realized that there after the fact, after you leave a marriage, after your spouse dies, you really need to have what's called the year of firsts. You need to go through that year of firsts on your own, which I have not done in either of my cases for different things that come up. And I remember when I left my husband, is as I went from relationship to relationship to relationship because I needed to work on this relationship.
With
And
yourself.
right, once I worked on this relationship with me and spirit because this is all one in my life. Once I was able to do that, that is when the perfect for me man fell into my lap. And so
Wow.
I got rid of my basic OCD type stuff because it was all related to me, not the partners that I was dating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's very interesting. Um, yeah, and so uh with the jealousy, you noticed that it went down as you worked on yourself, like it kind of
Hmm.
faded out. Yeah, right. Exactly. And so that's part of the work too, like getting to know the real you. So, Tina, what was like kind of that mantra or message to yourself that helped you with the jealousy? Was it that I am enough? Yeah.
Yes, and actually, since my husband died, I've done some RTT therapy with Amy Lawson. Um, and that work alone, that's the biggest I am enough. I am enough. And understanding that I'm enough for him. I'm enough for my relationships with my children. I'm enough with my relationships with Mike. I am enough. I'm
Mhm.
enough.
Right.
And that's all that's important in my life is I'm enough. If this isn't the right relationship, then it's not meant for me. And it's not because I'm not enough. It's just this isn't the right one because I am enough.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Well, and the other thing to mention about these intrusive thoughts, images, feelings, urges, those types of things, it's normal to experience doubt. We all experience doubt from time to time, like those what ifs. And the difference is there are two types of doubts. First one being reasonable doubts, where, as I was saying, like it's understandable, reasonable, and just normal to have questions. Okay. With reasonable doubts, once you have the information, you feel resolved and you feel like you can move on with life. Now, in the OCD realm, if you have the other type of doubt, which is obsessive doubts, doesn't matter what type of information you get, your brain keeps going back to that what if. And so the other thing about the obsessive doubts, it feels urgent, it feels repetitive, it probably feels like you're beating a dead horse, you know? And OCD loves to present you with unsolvable problems, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
So, even those people who have like the magical thinking of, well, what if a year ago I did cheat on my partner? Maybe something happened in that late night work meeting and I just don't remember. Like, people do experience those type of thoughts. And um, the longer, and you've probably seen this too, Tina, like the longer you spend in those what if stories, the further from reality you get. And OCD has a very wide imagination. Most of the time, honestly, it seems like the people with OCD are the creative folks because their
Yes.
stories are so creative.
Oh yeah, it's just like a little child that, they start telling their little story. To the parent, it's a lie, but to the child, it's, bigger and bigger and big. It's real to that child. And that's what
Yes.
happens to the people, I've seen that. And they can destroy a marriage. In my case, I don't work with those people like you do. I work with individuals that are going through abuse aspects, but in the other side of this, especially in the dating process, this is when I see it the most. I'm like, oh my God, you're like obsessing over this stuff. It's like, quit already.
Yes. Yes. Um, so if someone listening, if they are noticing that these doubts, they come up, randomly, you're not trying to think about them, but even so, they just won't go away and they're sticking around. Essentially, if you are spending more than 1 hour a day in this type of distress, whether it's the mental aspect of it or maybe it's checking, researching, getting reassurance, that's another super common one. Maybe, probably like your cousin going to you and asking, is he the one? How do I know he's the one? Or whatever your cousin was coming up with. Like, if you're spending more than an hour a day, more than likely you're dealing with OCD.
Yes. And that it kind of brings me to a story. Again, what you think about, you bring about, you create it. So my husband and we were out here in South Carolina going to my youngest son's wedding about 6 years ago. And so we're going to the wedding and then we're heading all out to go visit family and stuff at this lighthouse. Well, it was a park. And so in order to get into the park to this lighthouse, you had to go through gates and you had to deal with the park people And my husband and I got into the park and we were both just like, oh, did you notice that person? How wonderful they were, how kind, how respectful, how polite. And then about 20 minutes later, a cousin that lived in this area, he comes out to visit us and he's like, did you notice them rude people? I mean, his story was completely opposite of ours. So for the rest of
Yes.
the day, I kind of watched. We had meals together and our meal was so wonderful and the waiter was so polite to us. And I happened to notice that the waiter wasn't nearly as polite to him and his wife, and their meal wasn't good. It's just that once you start noticing the negative, you're going to start creating the negative. And when it comes to a partner, you're saying that they're cheating. Well, then pretty soon you're going to start noticing that they're later and later coming in and they had a flat tire. That's why they're late. But you're only noticing the negative sides of that. You don't even hear that he tells you he had a flat tire. You can't even hear it because you've already created a story around it.
Absolutely. So true. And that's one of the tricks of OCD as well. And with the tricks, I mean, there's a couple that come up. Like one of them is mismatching, where you think, oh, my neighbor's husband just cheated on her. And so you feel like it's going to happen to you, as if it's going to rub off on your
Mm,
relationship, But the one you're describing about uh, basically coming to an assumption already and then trying to backtrack and find evidence, that's called reverse reasoning. And so with the reverse reasoning, you've already come to this conclusion. Now you're just trying to find evidence to justify that conclusion. And that is so dangerous, especially, when you're talking about your the stability of your relationship. But another thing that it loves to do is take things out of context. So, for example, if okay, meteors exist, right? And meteors have hit the earth. So I use this example a lot. But are we reacting as if a meteor's on the way to our house right now? No, we're not. But that's how they are reacting with their OCD, as if like this bad, awful thing is happening, but it's totally out of context because there's no evidence to support like that the partner is cheating or that they themselves are cheating. Um, so it tries to present facts that may or may not be true.
right. And one of the things, and I have talked with people outside of my realm of divorce, but when they come to me and they're saying, they're cheating, they're with her, they're whatever. What happens when they start blaming that Facebook friend is that Facebook friend has nothing directly or probably even really indirectly to do with their mate. They might be at the same mall around the same time, but never even see each other in that mall, right? But their little brain decides that this is what it is. And not only now are they messing with their own life and their relationship with their possible perfect mate, they're
Hmm.
now going to destroy the life of somebody who's not even spoken to their mate. They're going to destroy
Exactly.
the life of that individual, and not just that one, but the life around that individual, because what they're getting ready to do is spew a lie that they
Hmm.
think is true.
Exactly. Yeah, because it just takes things totally out of context. Because just like you're saying, just because, there's another female in the vicinity, that doesn't create context that there's an adulterous relationship, you know?
Exactly. And when we start looking at our actions, when we can, and it's the only thing in our life that we can control is our actions and our thoughts. We can, which is the work that you do, we start controlling these thoughts. We can change our whole life, or the perception of the world around us, our household, the lives of those that are just outside our circle, and even affect the lives of the people outside of that circle.
Hmm.
All when we calm our thinking down and put ourselves into a better state.
Yes, absolutely. And I really agree with you on what you are thinking is like what it becomes, whether it's the law of attraction. I also lean into, I mean, I'm not really into manifesting, but there's definitely something to be said about the self actualization part, because same thing
Mhm.
applies with even job interviews. If you go into a job interview thinking this is going to be horrible, I mean, you've already set yourself up for failure.
Right, right. You
Yeah.
know, and you're right. It doesn't matter what words we use. I use a law of attraction just because everybody seems to know that the key words or the coin words. But it's when we go into like the job interview and we say it's going to be horrible. Well, that resonates. I mean, it just goes back and forth. It ruminates in our brain. And to the point that it's ruminating just before we go in, they ask us a question and we roll all over our own tongue. The words don't come out right, kind of like I did in the beginning of the show here. And when the words don't come out right, it's like once you fail that question, then the next one's easier to fail, and so on and so on. And
It
it's the
just
same way that,
snowballs.
yeah, it's the same way we do in our relationships.
Yeah, I mean, like that couple you were observing, it's all in your perspective and it's all in the stories that you're telling yourself.
Hmm.
Because, when it comes to OCD, again, I mean, a lot of the women also struggle with like health concerns, for example, like health OCD, where they think, oh, a headache equals a brain tumor. And, you know, you have to like slow things down. Like that's part of the therapy process and the coaching process that I help these ladies with. It's like slowing down your thinking to be like, where's the evidence? You know, and a headache is just a sensation. It's not a symptom of a larger problem. So they start to see that, oh, it's the story. The story is the thing that's creating all of this stress because you
Right.
changed the story and you change how you feel about it.
Right. And you know, I come into my work, I have lots of different backgrounds, but in mind body medicine, when you have a headache and you convince yourself that it's a tumor, well, literally our bodies can create a tumor, not necessarily cancerous either, but it can create and wall off, is what we called it in iridology. It walls off this area so the blood flow doesn't flow through it. Now it's just flowing around it. So now this area has this like aspect where it grows this growth. And you can literally see people that think I have a tumor either in the brain or someplace else, I have cancer. You can watch them and watch this growth grow just by what they're saying. And because you and I are on the outside of these OCD relationships, you and I can definitely see what they keep talking about and researching is now growing. They're making it
Wow.
worse.
Wow. It's really incredible how the brain can basically create the reality that you're obsessing over. And
Right.
so yeah, like that's part of the work too, like leaning into the stories that serve you, and a lot of those stories about, your real self and not allowing yourself to cross that mental bridge from the here and now over into the OCD land or the OCD bubble, like we call it. Because
Mm-hmm.
and I help the ladies form like what does your OCD bubble look like? And some of them are like, it's a tornado or it's like this spidery thing that keeps me trapped and stuck. And it's so true. So mentally and visually, we're creating those metaphors of like, what is keeping you in the here and now? How can you like ground yourself? But, it's a lot of other techniques. And the brain, what's cool about it, it's very adaptable and resilient. So now it's easier to address these concerns when people get treatment as soon as it starts. But on average, what's sad, people wait 10 to 14 years before they ever get treatment, and that's just in general because OCD is missed 50% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why, I have my podcast, The Bossing Up Overcoming OCD, and all the things I do because it's very common and it's also commonly missed. which is
Yeah.
really sad because the treatment is very different than your typical talk therapy.
Yes, most definitely. And being able to work with you is important for that next step for them. So as we're starting to come to the close of this, all of your contact information will be below the show, Erin, but how can people get a hold of you, or how do you want them to get a hold of you, and what do you offer to them to help?
Wonderful. Yes, the best way to get in touch with me is to DM me on Instagram at Erin Davis Coaching, and that is Erin for Erin. But they can DM me on Instagram at Erin Davis Coaching. I'm happy to answer any questions. Right now, I am offering intensives. So if they're looking for some assistance where maybe you've never had relief from OCD, or you've tried therapy, or you've tried meds, like none of the things are working, my intensives are intended to give you that brain reprocessing, restructuring within a condensed time frame, because the brain, again, is very resilient. So they can DM me on Instagram, and they can DM me the word Tina, and I'll know that they came from you. So, and I can talk with them about the intensive. So that's looking like 2 to 3 hours of sessions per visit, just to help, yeah, get it
Yeah,
taken
that
care
would
of.
be amazing. I'm just just because of where I came from just recently in this last year or so, being able to spend that amount of time in a relaxed state, because, like you go to a therapist or whatever, it's an hour, and I work from the massage aspect, my body just starts to relax in the hour. It's the next 30 minutes of a 90-minute massage that I'm actually getting the benefits, right? So being able to spend that amount of time with you would be just totally amazing.
Yes, because you think about it, you normally do the small talk and the ramp up, and then you get maybe 15 minutes of solid work, and then you got to wrap it back up.
Right, right.
So, this, your brain is fascinating. And the other cool part is that through treatment, the part of the brain that is signaling all of this anxiety and stress, it can get smaller
Right,
with the
right.
right amount of treatment. So, yeah, it's very powerful stuff, and you can achieve results. That's what makes it so different. You can achieve results in a short time frame.
Hmm. Yes, and and I do. I've seen the results. And in natural medicine, we say it takes 3 months plus 1 month for every year that you've had to deal with this, and then give or take at the end of that. And with the brain, there's not that much difference, but doing the work this way speeds everything up.
Yes.
Everything gets sped up.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me, Tina. And I would love to give you like, I have a quiz on relationship OCD. I'm happy to send you that link so that your audience can know the difference. It like, is this red flags or is this relationship OCD?
And that would be awesome. So as we start to wrap up, I want you, our viewers, to know that I'm a certified divorce coach, meaning that I'm certified in the complexities divorce. I'm a certified high conflict divorce coach. So I understand the aspects and the difficulties that people going through abuse, narcissistic abuse, and those types of things come from. Not only have I been taught that, I also have experienced that myself. I've watched my father go through it. I watched my late husband go through it. Understanding it from the inside and the outside. That's where I come in, and that's where I work with my clients from. You can reach me through my email at coachtinalyn@gmail.com. That's CoachTinaLynn@gmail.com. My website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. You can also find me on social media under Facebook, Tina Lynn Huggins, Huggins, LinkedIn, Tina Huggins, Instagram, Divorce Coach Tina Lynn, and TikTok under Divorce Tina. So, Erin, as we close up, can you give our viewers a last little bit of advice?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much to share, but I think ultimately recognizing that these thoughts do not define you. You are not broken, And if you are bothered by these intrusive thoughts, feelings, images, or urges, that is actually a sign that you care very deeply, either about the relationship with yourself or the relationship with your partner. And that is a good sign. And I've been through it myself, and there is definitely a way forward where you can experience very deep, satisfying, and um, just a very authentic connection with your partner. And it's a wonderful place to be in once you address these symptoms, these sensations, these intrusive doubts, obsessive doubts, that you come out on the other side and you're not controlled by these spiraling thoughts anymore, that you're actually grounded in the present. You feel, and your partner will definitely notice. I feel like that's like one of the best benefits of it all. Like your partner even notices that you're happier and more connected. And we all crave relationships, and it's okay to lean on people, and you deserve to have a fulfilling one at that.
Hmm. So my little bit of advice here is earlier I talked about what you think about, you bring about. Well, thinking about it, especially talking about it, these are like prayers. So start changing what you think about. Start changing what you're saying. Make your prayer a different prayer. Bring about the good. Ask for the good. Don't keep going over all the bad.
Right,
So change your prayer and change the wording that you're putting out there to God, because those are going to be the things that one that you deserve to have. You deserve to have a wonderful relationship. So keep asking for that wonderful relationship.
right, right. Well, thank you so much again, Tina. This was a lot of fun.
Great, great. So just so that you understand as our viewers, if you're in a situation where you need to have the police present, please call 911 here in the United States. Get the police there, press charges on the individual. This is your key out. And don't drop those charges. Most often what happens after you divorce or after you drop charges is the abuse that was happening before the charges becomes much worse. This is your key out of the relationship. Time to get the divorce coach, the professional that you need to help you through this so that you can get to safety. If you are dealing with a aspect of suicide, which is something that I went through early on after I left my first husband, we get to there, we need to have that help. Call the suicide prevention hotline at 988. Get that help, have somebody talk you off the ledge, and then go to a professional afterwards so that you can work through those issues. Make sure that you understand that here in the US, you can also call the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. Have somebody there with you as you walk through the scary part of your life. Make sure that you're not alone. And I ask that you please like, comment, and share this information so that it can help others. And again, thank you so much for being here today, Erin.
Thank you.
And we will see you later.